Hello and welcome to the Aviation Incidents Recap here on the AviationSource YouTube channel. Quite a few incidents have happened over the last 7 days or so that we haven't discussed on the channel, so without further ado, let's get into it. An Aeros Sucre Boeing 727-200 freighter departing from Bogota struck the localizer antenna array after overrunning the runway end on takeoff on November 10, 2024. Aerosucre Flight 6N372, a Boeing 727-200 freighter aircraft, was conducting a departure from runway 14 left out of Bogota. The flight was a scheduled cargo service bound for Valencia Arturo Michelena International Airport in Venezuela. The aircraft then continued its climb before entering a holding procedure. Flight crew then elected to make a precautionary return to Bogota. The aircraft subsequently landed on runway 14 right without further incident approximately 1 hour after its initial departure. The Colombian Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that the aircraft had collided with the localizer antenna array, providing a photograph of the antenna damage. The aviation regulator also confirmed that following the takeoff, the aircraft conducted holding to burn off fuel before making its early return to Bogota. The FAA has announced a 30-day ban on all US flights to Haiti after 3 aircraft operated by US airlines reported being hit by gunfire this week. The flights were operated by 3 different US carriers, being Spirit, JetBlue and American Airlines. It highlights the escalating violence in the Caribbean nation. The first incident occurred on Monday involving a Spirit Airlines flight from Fort Lauderdale to Port-au-Prince. The aircraft was struck by gunfire while attempting to land. Following the Spirit Airlines incident, 2 other planes were also targeted. A JetBlue flight from Haiti to New York and an American Airlines flight from Haiti to Miami were both found to have bullet damage after landing. The FAA's decision to suspend flights to Haiti comes amid a surge in gang violence in the country. The UN has also temporarily halted its flights to Port-au-Prince, further limiting access to the region. This decision was made after the 3 commercial planes were struck by gunfire this week. The UN's suspension of flights will significantly limit the flow of humanitarian aid and personnel into Haiti, further exacerbating the already dire humanitarian situation. The UN has warned that the escalating violence is worsening an already dire humanitarian situation. The escalating violence has led to widespread disruptions, including the closure of schools, businesses, and government offices. A woman and child have been hospitalised after a Qantas flight from Sydney encountered turbulence on approach to Brisbane on November 13th. Qantas flight QF528 was operating a scheduled route between Sydney and Brisbane. The flight encountered turbulence during the descent into Brisbane Airport. According to reports, 3 passengers were not wearing seatbelts despite the seatbelt sign being illuminated. A woman passenger in her 40s and a child were referred to Prince Charles Hospital following the flight's arrival into Brisbane. According to the Queensland Ambulance Service, the 3 passengers not wearing seatbelts were assessed by their paramedics on arrival. The turbulence encounter was reported to have occurred during the latter phases of the descent into Brisbane. During this time, the seatbelt sign had been illuminated for the approach and landing. The spokesman went on to confirm that the 2 hospitalised passengers were treated for bruises and lacerations sustained during the turbulence encounter. The 3rd passenger, who also sustained injuries, declined the referral to hospital according to the report. The woman and child were both reported to be in stable condition. An in-flight dispute involving a frozen tuna roll resulted in a 79-year-old woman passenger being escorted off a Jet 2 flight by armed police in Turkey on November 3rd, according to the BBC. The 79-year-old passenger was simply identified as Lily from Hertfordshire. She was aboard a Jet 2 flight from London Stansted Airport to Bodrum, Turkey. The elderly passenger was accompanied by a daughter on the flight, and according to the report, the passenger had refused to pay the £9 charge for the tuna roll. On being handed the roll, she found that it was still frozen in the middle. Lily claimed that the airline stood their ground on the charge on the basis that she had already opened the wrapper. From there, the in-flight dispute apparently escalated. Having refused to pay the charge, the elderly passenger reported being repeatedly asked by cabin crew about the situation. Cabin crew singled out Lily and her daughter and instructed them to make their way to the exit. As a result of the in-flight altercation, police had been summoned. 4 armed police then met the flight on arrival. She and her daughter were instructed to show the officers their passports. Following this, the pair were released without charge. An American Airlines flight conducting a standard departure from Honolulu, Hawaii, had to conduct an expedited climb in order to avoid a mountain on November 13th. Following takeoff, the flight had been issued standard departure directions by air traffic control. The FAA released a brief report of the incident. It stated that the air traffic controller subsequently instructed the flights to make an expedited climb. According to the FAA report, the flight crew had failed to make an assigned turn. This turn formed part of the routine departure given to the flight by air traffic control. According to ABC News, American Airlines released a statement after the incident. According to the airline, flight crew complied with the subsequent instruction and there were no subsequent issues with terrain clearance. In the statement, they said, during the climb out of Honolulu on November 13th, the crew of American Airlines Flight 298 requested and received right turn clearance and complied with controller instructions. There was no enhanced ground proximity warning system alert, as there were no issues with terrain clearance based on the trajectory of the aircraft. An Alaska Airlines 737-900ER made an emergency landing in Los Angeles after losing a tire during its departure from Washington Dulles on November 14th. During the takeoff, flight crew reported experiencing a violent jolt through the aircraft. The event was sufficient to cause the deployment of a flight attendant oxygen mask and cause overhead lockers to open. Flight crew believed the jolt was consistent with a tire blowing during the takeoff or early climb procedure. A subsequent runway inspection at Washington Dulles confirmed some tire debris was located. The aircraft's undercarriage had retracted normally and flight crew elected to continue the flight to the destination of Los Angeles International Airport. On arrival in Los Angeles, an emergency landing was conducted and passengers were instructed to assume the emergency brace position for landing. The aircraft was able to land safely under directional control without further incident. The aircraft was met by emergency ground service vehicles as a precaution. And finally, a Scandinavian Airbus A330-300 bound for Miami from Stockholm made a U-turn to Copenhagen after encountering severe turbulence en route on November 14th. Scandinavian flight SK957, operated by an Airbus A330-300, had conducted the standard departure from Stockholm Arlanda Airport. The flight was a scheduled service to Miami International Airport. Approximately 4 hours into the long-haul service, the flight encountered severe turbulence whilst in the cruise at flight level 370. The aircraft was passing Greenland at the time of the in-flight occurrence. Due to the severity of the turbulence encountered, flight crew elected to make a return to Europe in accordance with mandatory airline policy. Flight data shows that the aircraft descended approximately 8,000 feet during the event. This may have been initiated by flight crew to avoid the zone of severe turbulence. The turnaround was conducted and flight crew initiated a track to Copenhagen. Photographs posted to social media taken by a passenger on board the flight shows items strewn about the aircraft's cabin as a result of the encounter. No injuries have been reported amongst the passengers and crew as a result of the in-flight turbulence event. And that is that. Thank you so much for watching the Aviation Incidents Recap. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to like, comment and subscribe for more videos on the AviationSource YouTube channel. Also, be sure to subscribe to our eco program to help us in our journey of making the environment a better place to live. For now, this has been the Aviation Incidents Recap, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.